You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John. How's the new campaign you're writing coming, by the way?
Good. We ran a session of it.
So you're into 0. It now?
Yeah, but we had to take a break because we got to catch up on Vampire because summer schedules have been all over the place.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, so we're like, we just recorded 11 for Vampire and we just released 6 or 7 or whatever, so we're not too far ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now,
hopefully next month we'll start recording more Tiger.
Cool.
More Flying Tigers.
Now, being part of that dedicated group of tabletop role players, you know what it takes to create a story from scratch and the hardships that come with it.
Yeah.
When you're crafting a story, do you try and come up with multiple ways the story can end, or do you focus primarily on the adventure and point them towards one goal?
That's a good question. I don't plan a lot ahead. I try to have what the bad guys want to do and want done, and try to make that more real in the world. Show the effects of what the bad guys are doing, and then allow the players to come up with wacky ideas of how to fix it, and then go from there. I mean, you can do it multiple ways. A lot of GMs will write the whole story out, and that's kind of a waste of time because players won't go down that path half the time. So yeah, I'm more of an improv kind of a GM. So I have an overarching idea, but yeah, it changes.
That's cool. I've never been able to. Well, I've never had the chance, I should say, to get into tabletop games. I tried years and years ago, but my friends and I couldn't keep up a schedule, and it was really only 1 or 2 sessions, and I didn't get the exposure I was hoping for, but
the full experience.
Yeah. So I mean, I've dabbled in writing books since I was like in 2nd, 3rd grade. I don't know. But I started one in 7th grade that I was actually really interested in. But of course, that fell through after a while. Yeah. I can just imagine the lengths you have to go through to create not only a story, but one that other people invest time and energy in. So that's pretty cool.
It's cool. I love the other players investing time into because if you don't allow your players to have a hand in what the story is how it's going to unfold or what the world is like, then they're not going to be invested. So, a lot of good GMing is allowing people to come up with their own world or where their characters are from or some part of the fantasy or fiction. Because if they're not in it, they don't have ownership over it, then they cannot be invested.
Yeah.
I like writing a book. I can't even think of where I would begin there because it just seems like such a monumental task that I wouldn't know where to begin. And I would probably write it like I do my games, very improv, and it would probably be really bad because nobody else is checking me in terms of my players saying like, I want to do this cool thing. Oh, that's a really good idea. Let's go with that.
Yeah. It's interesting to think that tabletop games inspired a lot of early role-playing games for video games, I would say.
Yeah.
And do you think that, I mean, obviously it does more so now, but do you think the investment of players now is becoming more important? I'm noticing more RPGs with shorter stories, but that sandbox element is giving players a lot of freedom. And I'm wondering if that's hurting the video games at this point.
Well, yeah, video games 100%. I think from like a TTRPG standpoint, it was that way where you would have a GM who had an idea of a story, and it would pretty much be railroad until the end, or it would be a dungeon, and that's a railroad to the end too. And you can have really good railroad stories. And I think in video games, it works really well to have some level of railroad, because with too much freedom and too much open world, you can get lost in the game. You can, there will be points where you don't know where you're going and what you're supposed to do, or you get bored at a certain point and you're not being pushed along by the story. I think that to some extent is detrimental, and it just is a way for them to pad on time for the game.
Exactly.
It's content, quote unquote, but crafting or whatever. Like, I never ever cared about a crafting system in any video game at all. It was always a means to the end.
You're right.
And it was there. It's unless you make it interesting, how do you make crafting interesting? Minecraft maybe is the only actual interesting crafting that you can have. And that's the main basis of the game to be, is crafting. So
yeah, it's half the title.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I that's kind of my
no. I would tend to agree with you. I think we've hit a point in video games where RPGs are less about really engaging story and more about what else can you do. And we talked a little bit about this in the Zelda podcast, but it's just becoming too much. And I think we need to dial it back to concrete 40 hours of gameplay. Like, if you think about it, there are multiple video games that have stood the test of time. And a lot of them are from the 16-bit, 32-bit era,
right,
where they could not afford 100, 200 hours of gameplay. So I think a lot of companies are going this route where, more hours, more money, which sucks. But if you think about it, these titles that top almost all the 100 best games of all time or 100 best RPGs of all time are very much 16-bit, 32-bit, even 8-bit games at times.
Right.
But
even in the PC world, you have like Baldur's Gate or Morrowind, which I never played them, but from what I know, it's they're maybe a little open worldy, but the stories in them are still pretty directed.
Yeah.
And you can have the veneer of an open world, but still have main plots that you are relying upon to drive the story forward.
Yeah. I'm thinking games like Chrono Trigger for Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy 3/6, even Zelda: A Link to the Past. That's right. An adventure game, right?
Yeah.
And that tops a lot of lists for a lot of people and a lot of magazines I've seen. But they're very short games in comparison, and I think we need to get back to that. And today's game, ladies and gentlemen, is one of them that is not at the top of every list, but is up there. God damn it.
Yeah.
Secret of Mana, which is a classic. It is a JRPG, which brings the players on a journey through a fairly large world where they encounter plenty of people, creatures, and danger as the story unfolds. The main character is a young boy who, against the wishes of the town elders, trespasses on sacred ground and pulls the mana sword from a stone near a waterfall. He's then banished from town under the belief that by doing so, or by pulling the sword out, will bring severe bad luck and monsters. The general goal is to stop the evil Thanatos from bending the world to his will by using the mana seeds spread across the world. Eventually, he proceeds to wreak havoc on the world, trying to gain ultimate power, which will summon the great mana beast, which will eventually destroy the world. Thanatos ultimately fails thanks to you and your friends. The world is saved, but not unchanged. It is a complex story that never fully develops, unfortunately. It's choppy and unfinished, intended to be a much larger game initially, from my understanding. Nintendo was working with Sony, believe it or not, for the Super Nintendo CD add-on. But when that deal fell through, they cut a major amount of the story to make the game fit and release on a Super NES cart, which is a shame. I have heard an estimated 40% of the story has been cut from the release, which is massive.
And I from what I heard, the translation itself wasn't great either. Yeah.
It is worth saying, as we were just talking, despite this, a very memorable experience sustained this game. And I would say that is due in no small part to the soundtrack and the ability, which was exciting for me, at least, to play with 2 other people at the same time.
Yep.
So you would have a party of 3 throughout the entire quest. And if you had a multi-tap, you could play with 2 friends, which was game-changing for RPGs.
Right.
It just brought a whole new level of excitement to the game. And I had plenty of nights with my friends playing this game.
That really is the... so I have some memories of Secret of Mana. I think I only really played it with either me and my brother. And I don't know. I don't remember how far we got. To be honest, I remember the soundtrack way more than I remember the game. But I think the way to play it is to play it 3-player, because I think that would be super fun. The game itself is really hard, and to my old reflexes, I don't know if I can cut it anymore. I remember, like, I think when I got the SNES Classic, I tried to play Secret of Mana again, and I couldn't get past the first boss. So
it's tough. Yeah. But there's a problem with that toughness. The game is extremely broken. Yeah. I played it again as an adult when they released it for the Switch. They released the Secret of Mana collection, which was, or Trials of Mana or whatever. So it had the original Game Boy game, Secret of Mana, and then Seiken Densetsu 3, which is the third one or whatever. It just never released in America. Going through this game as an adult, I was like, man, this story blows. It's just not complete. And you can see it now. You know, as a kid, you could overlook stuff. Maybe it just felt rudimentary or something. But wow, it's not good. And then the gameplay, while still very fun, is extremely broken. It's once you get magic in that game, it's basically just stock up on MP boosts, because you're just going to spam the boss with magic and win.
That's why, like, the first boss is so hard, because you don't have any of those tools. And then that's kind of bringing back memories of, like, once you have magic and
it's over.
pick the right magic to use, you're like, oh, that's easy. Yeah,
whoever can level the opponent with magic the fastest wins the game. So it's still fun, still very enjoyable. And it brings us to this point. Soundtrack composed by Hiroki Kikuta. I am hard-pressed to find another soundtrack that sounds quite like this one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not trying to oversell it, but I think there is a mystical quality and a sound to this album that pervades the whole thing. 100%. And I would say a lot of that comes from the sound of the percussion. It's very, very snappy, poppy, and powerful. And I haven't heard anything from this era that sounds quite like this soundtrack. So I really want to draw attention to this one because it's an impactful soundtrack. Like we said, probably the most memorable thing about the game. And
I think the drums are what kind of make it a cohesive soundtrack. And you have the wistfulness of, like, there's a pan flutes and a lute and those kind of mystical medieval instruments, which it just gives you all of that together. Has all just, this track just has so much soul to it.
Yeah,
there's like a lot of different styles and motifs that really build out a rich, colorful world. Like, everything's different. You can tell, like, you're going between different like cultures and towns, and it really builds that world out for you and audibly.
Yeah, there's a quote I found on Wiki. I want to just read a couple excerpts here. He finds composing music to be natural, like breathing. He considers it to be his vocation and contrasts it with designing and creating video games, which he calls his wish, and finds to be very difficult to do in comparison to composition. Kikuta does not worry about the style of music he composes, considering it only to be a tool or method. As a result, his music frequently is composed of combinations of styles mixed together, like you're saying. I wanted to say that because he's inspired to create his music by things that he has seen, especially while traveling. And he credits much of the musical imagery in Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana as being inspired by several islands in Fiji that he has visited. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I think some of the tracks really do lend to that kind of tropical Pacific Island theme. Like the Dancing Animals track has that kind of bongo beat to it. It just, that track goes hard. I love Dancing Animals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have that kind of island feel to it, and I can definitely feel that inspiration that he had from traveling around.
Yeah, and the percussion, as we've stated, is very prominent in this album. And this song in particular has that really good groove to it. And it's almost all percussion with like a really dirty
weird
guitar
grungy,
in there. Yeah. But it's actually really cool.
It's like this happy, upbeat kind of track with that dancing drums and percussion. That just start from the beginning. It kind of drives the track forward. It has just an amazing beat to it. The little melody that you get kind of helps at least give it some body, some variation. I think, but really, it's all about the percussion.
Yeah, I think the strength here is obviously the percussion. That's actually with the different tones of the wood instruments. You're getting more of a theme in the percussion rather than the guitar itself, which is really cool. You can definitely picture dancing around a fire drunk or something with this kind of thing. But he captures that pretty well. For me, a song like Fear of the Heavens, which opens up the game at the title screen, is a great demonstration of the unknown and the mysticism and magic of the game. I was talking about that mystical quality that kind of comes over the album as a whole. This song opens with a deep, multi-layered howl from some unknown beast. The song just falls into this delicate and beautiful piano melody with really light strings to bring in the title screen. And why I wanted to call attention to that is because above all else, it's an RPG, and this one is very fantastical and deals with dragons and beasts and magic. This captures what I think they were going for with this game, which is not as lighthearted of a game as it became, at least as the final product.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mystery behind this song, a lot of tragedy. And I think this is a great representation of the overarching mysticism of the game. And I wanted to call attention to it because it's a powerful opening. It was different than anything I had really experienced in an RPG up to that point. And it had a solemn and sorrowful feel to it, which was very interesting to me. So
yeah, I love the fantastical and mystical feel you get from it. It is the epitome of a fantasy game title with that tragedy, like you said, a lot of sadness. I mean, there's a lot of sadness in many of the tracks of this album, and it is on display here where something has gone wrong, and you get that bit of hopefulness in the middle there where you have all those rising notes. And it kind of calls to adventure to some extent. It is a really beautiful, beautiful opening track.
And I think another song with that similar quality would be Whisper and Mantra. It's a similar styling with a choir to provide a very ominous and unsettling nature to the track. It's very beautiful. And on this album, one thing to note is that the entire soundtrack has some element of reverb, which does a lot for me. I'm not entirely sure why I like it so much here, but it definitely gives the album as a whole an added element that keeps it separate from any other soundtrack I can think of. I think the soundtrack has a lot of layers that encompasses many attitudes and emotions. So, I don't know. These first couple tracks we're talking about here really are setting a tone for the album, and yet it takes so many different turns that just keep the album engaging. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, you have tracks like Whisper and Mantra that are, it evokes that feeling of being in a mystical cavern where this pool of mirrored water is in front of you, and a fae comes sparkling out, giving you a quest or something. Like, it has that feeling of magic, but also it's very sad. Like, it's a fae of the earth. It's the mana tree is dying, and you have to help repair that damage, and this fairy is part of that sadness and giving you that quest. It also, like, in terms of the different songs you have, like, you have this, and you have the Fear of the Heavens, the Dancing Animals, and then something like Curious Tale, which is like you're traveling through a town, and it has that what was the name of the village track from Zelda? It kind of has that similar
Kakariko.
Kakariko village vibe to it. And then you have something really sad like Phantom and a Rose. It's a really tragic track, and it really pulls at the heartstrings. This story is, while it wasn't done well enough in terms of the dialogue, you can almost turn the dialogue off and just listen to the music and feel the fantasy and the tragedy and the heroicism as well through all these tracks.
It's just such a beautiful spectrum of feelings on this album, but I would say those things where you feel the world around you, it feels more alive because it's so diverse, and there's just such a power behind it that it really grabs you. It transports you into this world by feeling lush and feeling fleshed out.
A good little adventure track is Into the Thick of It, which I think is the first track you have as you exit the village and get exiled, which they were kind of right to do, right? Because you did bring monsters to the village, right?
Pretty much.
Right?
I think they were spot on with this one. Get out of the town, kid. You ruined the world.
And this one has a lot of, hopefulness, and has that little flute flourish. Along with the harpsichord, it really gives that sense of adventure and getting out in the wilderness and making a path on your own.
And it's still, even though it's a little adventurous, it's still mystical, and you can sense the danger of it. It's not so happy and joyful that you lose sense of what's happening in the world. This track especially feels like the world is alive. You don't know what's lurking in the jungle before you. And there's just a really, really beautiful quality of exploration and discovery I get with this track. Great fit to the game. Now, the soundtrack takes some unexpected turns, like during The Oracle. The Oracle is very, very different than anything else you're going to hear on this album. It's very electronic and discordant, complete with odd vocalization to provide a beat and very unsettling bells. The atmosphere in this song is extremely hectic and fast-paced. Kikuta really spreads his wings with the song to try something truly different than the rest of the album. There are other tracks that have a similar quality to it, again, utilizing that mystical aspect of the game. I'm thinking a song like Ceremony, a track that is primarily bells with a deep gong in the beginning. It has a very waltzy feeling to it. But all the same, it's disturbing and feels unnatural to the rest of the game by implying the nasty motives of the mischief-making bad guys. So these two songs kind of coalesce for me. He's trying different things, and it's paying off because I think again, The Oracle is a very unique song to the album, and he uses some instruments that you really don't hear anywhere else.
Right. I think The Oracle is a great way of putting the player off kilter. You can, like we were talking about, playing a tabletop role-playing game. If you were like, okay, roll initiative, and you started playing The Oracle in the background, your players would be like, what the about to happen?
You should try that.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately with the Nastagram, although with Vampire we have been playing music, so maybe we can start doing that. But yeah, it hasn't really before days before Instagram, when we were just playing 3.5 as friends, you'd have music in the background, and just playing Oracle, and you have this insano fight that you have an idea for, turn out the lights kind of fight. It has that feeling of like just you're on edge, like ugh. Yeah.
I think it would bring a very strange and welcome change to whatever story you're telling, putting this song in there.
And then Ceremony, like you said, it's another track that kind of fits alongside that. That was more of like you're traveling through some ethereal, zone, or you're walking through a graveyard, and there's ghosts that are following you around. It has a different kind of unease and discordance to Oracle, but they kind of do fit that same vibe in this whole album.
And I think that's partially he masters that use of the bells and that discordant sound in there, because I believe it has something to do with mind control. There is an aspect of that in this game. I remember that. Yeah. The female protagonist, she has a boyfriend that has been possessed by the evil wizard, and they're using his body to do things. And I believe these two songs play a role in that somewhere. And I think the two songs really capture that. With the bells, it comes off as very disorienting, and I think it succeeds to bring that a little bit more realness to it.
I think kind of going along with some of the things we were talking about, this whole album, I mean, you can play it through and just kind of sit back and be awash with the emotions that it evokes. You'll be completely satisfied just sitting there and listening to it, playing it out in your mind. And, you have these kind of very meaningful tracks like Spirit of the Night, where it just gives you this sense of hope and despair at the same time. Like you have this desperate hope throughout the entire song, where it has that twinkling melody, then gets filled in with some strings and kind of swells a bit to give you more of a foundation for your hope. And I love the way this whole album just is a roller coaster ride of silly songs, adventure songs, tragic songs, and just discordant, crazy songs. Like it has everything you need for an adventure. Like you could literally bring this to a tabletop game and pick a track that you need for the time, and it would fit perfectly.
Yeah, Kikuta really covers pretty much all his bases.
Yeah.
But again, it's that life that's given to the game where it feels more fleshed out and more engrossing than some other games. And that speaks to his talents. And I would also say this album has a soft rock quality to it. Yeah. There are plenty of rock beats and melodies, of course, that permeate the record. Some of my favorite tracks to listen to are what I would consider easy listening. There's a little edge, but primarily there are joyous tunes. And take Together Always, a song I could hear from Phil Collins, maybe his Tarzan soundtrack. I'm saying the usage of wooden xylophone especially lends itself to being upbeat and jovial. And on the same side of that coin is one of my personal favorites, Flight into the Unknown. A beautifully crafted tune with flutes, intricate drumming, and bass guitar that's just flying. If this song does one thing, it's pick you up. It's very bright, fun. It has a wonderful melody that hooks you as the powerful drums just get going. It never lets up enough to drop you from that high. Yeah, I think those are just two examples of the highs of this album where, again, you can come back to a song like Mystical Invasion and it takes itself a little bit more seriously. It's utilized in some dungeons and indicates the unknown, perhaps the strife of the area. There's some fun drumming. The song is fairly simple, but it succeeds in providing a unique and interesting, if not unfriendly, melody and atmosphere. And you can just see the dichotomy between those two songs I just mentioned. Flight into the Unknown is extremely happy and you're soaring through the skies on a dragon, and the next one is just filled with danger. And we keep talking about these comparisons and these contrasting songs, and it sounds a little frantic to me right now as we're talking about it, but at the same time, that's what this album does. And it's not bad at all. It's just building and fleshing out this world in vibrant and extremely crafty ways.
Yeah, I think what it does is it's hard to find an album that has such a wide range of emotions and feelings, and styles, and all to still feel somehow cohesive to a story. Like I said, you can kind of guide yourself through the story in your mind, and it all feels right. But a lot of the tracks are just, if you went from one to the other, it would feel like it's a completely different game. This is probably one of the best soundtracks on the SNES. I mean, we raved about Link to the Past,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's good as Secret of Mana's soundtrack. And that's just because it's Link to the Past is kind of a one, and it's not one note, but it's one feeling. It's one.
It's straight
it's
adventure for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, and Secret of Mana is just everything you would ever want from any kind of RPG soundtrack, fantasy soundtrack.
Very much. That was expertly said, because this Hiroki Kikuta just gives us an album that brings the world to life in a way that you want RPGs to do. And part of the fun for me is along the lines I've discussed before on this podcast, where he's doing it with chip tunes. Yeah. And it teleports you someplace when you're a kid, and it's doing it right now. I'm 38. And to be able to capture the listeners the way some of these composers did back in the day, it takes some talent and some real musical genius to not only compose the songs, but make sure they sound right on the chip tune that's processing what they've composed. And in order for it to come out a specific way, they have to make sacrifices, and they have to make it work as best they can. And Kikuta just crafted an extremely unique album that has transcended game generations. Like many other composers we've talked about, he is and will continue to be known as a wonderful composer for his work on this game specifically. Any RPG fan of the age remembers the beauty of the game, the bright colors, the combat, and possibly, again, above all else, the music. So despite the game itself feeling extremely unpolished, the soundtrack is the one amazing thing about this game that still resonates, at least with me, and I think with you as well.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just the best part of this package.
Yeah, I was instantly transformed into the kid playing Secret of Mana again, and the soundtrack is just will never leave my mind. It is a great example of what you can do with the SNES and in any soundtrack really. Yeah, it's great.
Now, the album itself can actually be found on Spotify and Apple iTunes.
Ooh.
So go buy it. You will not be 100%. Disappointed. If you want a strange and colorful ride, this is one album for you. And
if you're running a D&D game and you need some background music,
any type of D&D game.
Yeah. anything you want.
There's a song for it on this album.
Yeah.
As for Kikuta himself, I believe he's staying pretty busy. He has his own private record label, Nostrilia, Nostrilia. He has released several albums. Alphabet Planet and Tiara are among those that he's released. So, shout out to him. He's still kicking it, and I wish I could hear more video game tunes from him. So hopefully he comes back and does something.
Yeah. What was the last thing he did?
I want to say he. I don't know for sure, but let me say he did come back for the remasters of these games.
Oh yeah.
In the Trials of Mana, and they remade Secret of Mana in 3D for the PlayStation. So I have yet to play that. I'm wondering if they fixed it.
Some of the stories, yeah.
Yeah, so
maybe.
I don't have any reference for that yet, but I have such a huge backlog of games, I can't keep adding to it. So, as our listeners know, this is the month from hell. So, what would you rate this album, sir? It seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 rabbi jumps out of 10.
I was going to say 10 rabbis. That's awesome. Well, we will stick with that. 10 out of 10, unanimous. Hiroki Kikuta stole our hearts then, and he's stealing them now. So, Secret of Mana, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for listening. And John, if you would like to say goodbye, please do so.
I'm going to take this dragon, and I'm going to be out of here.
Save us, Flammy! Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play RPG podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me. Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple.
We're not doing that.
Try again. Scratch that.
Check it out. Look it up.
John?
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, you like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say, we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.